So what we're going to do is take a look at defining your sales approach. And as it says on the slide, ensuring the economic engine of your business is purring. Sales is absolutely the economic engine of any company and not to be underestimated. And if you get this right, most, if not all, of your business problems simply disappear. So let's have a look at the outcome for this session, which is to define and discover the components that go into selling and establish a common language that helps define our success. Really important to have all of your sales team, your whole sales operation, working to the same type of approach because it's going to enable you to scale and grow. And the opposite of this is, say, a sales team of 12 individuals who all do different things in order to sell. They all have a different approach. They all work to the beat of a different drum. I've seen examples of that actually working where there's lots of different sales approaches and somehow it all comes together. But that's in the vast minority. The majority of companies who grow an operation successfully and enjoy the sales, they have a very clearly defined sales approach. This means that salespeople, don't have all different challenges, which is really hard to manage. CRMs are easier when you're all working to the same approach because there is that common language. Most importantly, there's a consistent customer experience. Imagine if there's different sales approaches and customer A says to a friend, hey, you got to go on board with this company. They're brilliant. I particularly like the onboarding process. I love the way they found out about my needs, and the warmth of their calls is great. And then so that prospect fills in a lead form and sends it in. Yet salesperson B prefers their approach is email. So they like to email and so forth. And the very reason that the prospect got in touch with you has been eroded. Your DNA has been eroded. The very reason that the other customer loved you isn't apparent in your next sales approach. So it's really important to have that consistency, if for nothing else, than your customers. The point is, defining your sales approach leads to a well-planned, clear, and efficient selling engine, enabling a blueprint for you to scale and grow, and an onboarding system that means new hires have a proven way of selling from the start. And I'm going to use a house analogy throughout this presentation because analogies help us understand, and we really recommend you energize your language when you're selling with analogies, because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to create understanding, a platform where the customer or the prospect knows exactly what they're buying and why, and the salesperson knows exactly how the customer likes to buy and it can get their best foot forward. And so analogies create clarity and energize language. So we're using an analogy here of a house and comparing that to a sales approach. But I digress. Here we go with the four major parts of this presentation. A sales approach is determined firstly by the model, which is the design to suit the purpose and the culture. The second is the structure, which are the major components that go into building the house or the sale. The third is the process, which is the sequenced build stages. And the final part is the method, which is the craft or the means of building it. So I'm going to break each one of these down and show you exactly how sales happen. First of all, the model. The house model is designed by an architect, as you know, to satisfy the needs of a homeowner. And the sales model does the same. It satisfies the needs of both the sales operation, but most importantly, the customer. And that's where we start with the customer journey. This defines how the customer likes to purchase. And so to do a deep dive into that for a moment, it's what do they believe as it relates to purchasing from you or your competitors? What do they value? Your customer should feel like they're being steered through a simple guided process that doesn't bend them out of shape. And I once heard it described as a Sherpa, someone who can help customers navigate through in the simplest possible direction. For example, the opposite of this is if I approach a recruiter and they say, yep, happy to have you as a customer, Matt, all you need to do is fill out this 5-page form. Then I run from that recruiter because I haven't filled out a 5-page form for 2 decades. And I feel like sometimes companies put friction in front of customers and prospects, and they haven't looked closely enough at how the prospect likes to buy. And so the easiest pathway to doing this, of course, is to make sure your customer journey is optimized by asking your existing customers a big open question such as, Ms. Customer, what are a few ways that we could have made the onboarding process even better for you, or even easier for you, or even more simple? And of course, you don't want to just listen to one customer because that's not a big enough data set. So you need to be able to make sure that the first customer doesn't say something different to the next 9 or the next 19. So you need a decent data set on that to find out how customers like to buy. And of course, the final point on that is that can change. So every 6 to 12 months, customers may buy in a slightly different way, which can be shaped by your competition as well. Then there's demand creation, the second stage of our sales model. And it's all around attention and engagement. So what's your best possible chance of stoking demand through the range of messages you put out in the right media? And it varies according to what the size of your universe is. So for example, if you can, and by universe, I mean the size and depth of your market. If you can only sell to a market of 10 companies, then your demand creation is going to look a whole lot different to a company that sells to millions of potential customers. There's quality relationships. If you're only selling to 10 customers, you've got to really go deep. You've got to network well. You've got to manage stakeholders well. If you're selling to millions, you can be more transactional. You can do email blasts rather than more considered letters, for example. So your demand creation really does center on the type of market in which you serve. That's where your marketing team needs to be really on this, aligned not only to the market, but also the sales team and sales operation. Thirdly, we have the distribution method. I could talk for 3 days about this, but very briefly, or hopefully briefly enough, you know that a B2B company will have a different distribution or a different way of delivering or serving their products to customers than a B2C company. If your sales force isn't big enough to cover both capability and coverage, then you might appoint a distributor or some sort of partner channel, which is popular in technology. And they may have some issues because it's not just a matter of appointing partners. You need someone to manage all that process. And there's very rarely a distribution method that doesn't have some challenges, but there will be one that suits you. And that's really important as we go to the final part of this, which is your sales team structure, which is the way we segment the sales team into different roles to stimulate the right level of distribution and demand back to the customer journey. These are all linked. So how do we set up a sales team structure? Well, there's various ways to do that. Simply by looking at some of the traditional type roles, you might have a different model than this, but if we stay very generic, you'll see that the bottom level, at the entry level, if you like, is telesales or lead generation. So that's outreach and such as being on the phones and other forms of outreach to generate demand. They might set meetings for the field sales team who are more experienced and senior sellers who present well and able to meet prospects and put their best foot forward. Typically, there's a couple of different types of field salespeople. There's more your pure hunter who loves the kill and then throwing it over the fence to account management. Or there's more of a farmer type who will nurture relationships. So you've got to be really aware of the different types of field salespeople there can be. Then there's, of course, account manager, because the sales should never stop. And traditionally, account managers haven't been brilliant at selling. That's changing and has changed quite a bit. A good account manager needs to get close to a client and not just react, but know their business well. And they'll help to keep sales flowing with things like cross-sells, upsells, repeats, and referrals. Then you got key account managers. Ideally, they'll have one or two of the largest clients at your company, and they'll work strategically with them to not only respond, but to anticipate future business needs as well. A great key account manager, and I've heard this about a few, they'll know more about the customer's business than the customer because they've networked around the business and they've got accumulated history and knowledge of this customer. And they'll be good at both protecting the account from your competitors and also spotting new opportunities to grow share of wallet. And then, of course, you've got senior sales and leadership and managers, directors, VPs. They're more experienced sellers again, who are great at managing a team and also can lead by example. I want my sales director selling because that keeps him or her in touch with the market and the best practice. So I'm always a little bit more wary of directors and managers who don't have some sort of sales role, if for nothing else than to keep their skin in the game. So this is usually organized in an org chart. You've probably got one. I won't bother talking about that. But the point is about this whole sales model, which is the first stage up here of where we're at. Your sales model should be like your dream home. It should wow visitors the moment they walk in the door. And it's going to help your company to best serve the needs of your customers and your sales operation and give you the maximum chance of optimizing new and existing new business revenue streams. So that's the model. Let's move on to the structure. The structure is the house, but more specifically the components or the resources that go into the house build. So in a house, there's all sorts of parts. As you know, windows, floor, lighting, nuts and bolts. There might be 20 different types of nuts, bolts, and nails, all that go into it, plus the tools needed to be able to do those jobs. No point having a nail if you haven't got a nail gun to secure it. And in sales, there's lots of parts made trickier because they're moving parts and they're always changing, or they're quite often changing, and sometimes not always agreed upon or prioritized in the right way. And in terms of their development, their rollout, their usage. And an example of that would be a CRM. So a CRM has superb amounts of functionality, virtually irrespective of which one you buy these days. Yet quite often we see that they're used as no more than the world's most expensive phone book. And so the structure, the components, the resources, the challenge with building a sales approach is to really ensure that you highlight and prioritize the most important parts of the sales build, just like the house build, to get right and to emphasize so that your sales operation, your sales teams are using them well. So that's a quick one on structure. You've got structural components already. How well are you using them and how well could you use them? The third part of the sales approach is the process, which is in two parts. This is part one. Now, the process is the way the house is built. It's, as it says up here, the sequenced build stages. It's got to make sense. It's got to be a logical sequenced series of steps to build an effective house, right? There's no point building the roof before you lay the foundations. So the roof being the close of the sale, if you like, and the foundations being the lead generation. So here we have a linear sales process with 8 stages. And here we have a cyclical sales process, which 6 stages, sometimes called a sales cycle. I like a cycle more than a line. Linear is fine, but it doesn't represent the fluid nature of selling, which never stops. So I quite prefer, we quite prefer a cyclical sales cycle. But I've seen these represented in all sorts of different ways. And if you Google sales process, you can see dozens of different ways that different companies show their sales process. Some companies have built extremely big, successful sales operations by having a really strong process. Coca-Cola, Steps to the Sale, IBM, Xerox, they all have very famous sales processes that enables them to scale and grow, establish that common language, get all the stages in the CRM mapped well, make sure they're optimal at each stage of the process. So really important to get your process right. It's the backbone of your selling, and that's the point. This is only the diagram stage of the process, but during our consultancy, we work really hard to make sure that the process, the headlines in the process are right for your customer, your business, and your sales operation. The second part are the activities that bring the process to life. So back to the house analogy. Building a bathroom is a set of stages, a process, but the activities we do within that process, such as tiling the bathroom, they bring it to life. So this is distinct from method, which we're tackling next. Method is more about the particular way or manner in which we may tile the bathroom, for example. That's the craft. So we're going to address that next. For now, the types of questions that we ask customers around sales activity is, what are the sales activities that we all need to do to be successful at selling? So if we go back to that previous process, the activities would fit under each part of this process. Now, the important thing is I've got maximum 3 written down. 3 activities would be the maximum to be able to get really good at selling. I see some companies who do 12 different ways of 12 different activities to bring their process to life. And I feel like they can be mediocre at all 12 rather than be absolutely brilliant at 1, 2, or 3 activities. So for example, consider a local business next to you. Maybe it's a butcher. Maybe they're just really good at upselling you from rump steak to eye fillet. They do it in a really subtle and nuanced way, and you always walk out of there spending more money than what you do. That's probably one of their key, if not their key, sales activity that they might have really worked hard to be good at. I've seen companies just do cold calling, and that's it. And they've been tremendously successful at it. They hire and train cold callers. They speak cold calling language, all of them. They've got systems to support cold calling. They have they improve as a group together because they're all focused on this one thing, and they get extremely effective at it. Another one of our customers is amazing at doing software demonstrations, the best we've seen. And they do it so well because they've spent so much time on getting good at it, because they've realized that that is the really the real inflection point of their sales process. They get that right, and the customer can forgive a couple of the other rough edges because their minds are blown by this tremendous demo that's interactive, engaging, and got all the hallmarks of showcasing the product in its best way. So really important to determine the 1, 2, or 3 activities that bring your process to life. And you need to ensure that the activity is actually going to get done. There's no point choosing an activity that your sales team are uncomfortable with doing. And also there'll be a nuanced version of an activity that suits your business well. So for example, in that cold calling scenario, you might do some sort of questionnaire or survey as part of your cold calling that adds value and gives customers or prospects a light bulb moment. So there's lots of different sales activities. I'll leave it up for you to decide what they are. But for example, how you generate new inquiries, respond to them, generate proposals and costings. What are your activities that sit under each part? What are the 1, 2, or 3 activities that you need to do, for example, to close the sale? So the point is, process is brought to life with a diagram that represents, for example, a cycle that's easy enough for a salesperson to understand, and the activities that sit beneath those process stages. Right, so quick checkpoint. We're up to method now. So we've done model, structure, and process. Method is the way, the means or the craft behind making sure those activities come to life in a way that the skilled practitioner does to get the best outcome. So if we looked at a house, we've got an example here of laying paving stones. A good stone paver will have a particular method of doing so that they believe gets to the best outcome. And so that could include steps such as compacting the ground, and it could also include beliefs or truisms that they've found along the way that guide their behavior, such as measuring twice and cutting once. And the example that I'm going to give you in sales is the discovery process. So discovery refers to questioning, listening, perhaps taking a view, the process of finding out as much as you can about that customer. And so there's some ways that a sales team in a particular company may put down for the method by which they do the discovery. So the discovery could be a part of the sales process, or it could be an activity that fits under a part of the sales process, depending on your definition and how you lay that out. So you can see some examples here, such as active listening, always ask, is there anything else? Never interrupt. This is the method by which we at a particular company do our discovery. Now, asking engineers, for example, to do selling is a bit like asking a bathroom tiler to do the paving. It's a similar type of process and method, maybe, and they can probably get there pretty easily because the difference between tiles and paving, you know, there's a lot of similarities. But it's going to take a bit of time and care and instruction to be able to get that bathroom tiler to be able to do the job. It's probably going to take longer. But if that bathroom tiler has the right values and you trust that person and they're able to do, then they did a great job. It's not out of the question to do that. And the same with engineers. We deal with a lot of left brain occupations, such as engineering, and you know, solutions type people and creative people who have never really been asked to sell that much, but they do have the methods by which sales happen. They can ask questions. They learn to deal with objections. Probably by the time they were 5 years of age, they probably learned to tell stories at an early age too. We can all do this because selling is just about being human. But just like the tiler and paving example, the engineer may take more time and it may not be very efficient, but the outcome could be brilliant. And I've seen it work really well where the client is more trusting of the engineer. The engineer is able to reference lots of other customer examples, which helps build that kind of trust. And I've also seen it fail where an engineer uses something like Wolf on Wall Street as a reference point to sell, and that doesn't work as well. But most prospects don't mind a few rough edges if they can see you're genuine and authentic and you're in it for the right reasons. So learning the method is really important, and a good salesperson will strive to learn a method that works and improve their current method as well. And learning method is really what good training companies like my own do. We identify the methods that you currently have, and then we provide a series of knowledge, attitude, skill, habit upgrades to be able to do the job at a more efficient, more impactful level. The point is, methods or methodologies, they focus on the most important parts or the activities of the sale to get right again and again and again with constant improvement, always with the customer at the heart of the approach. So the point of this whole presentation: model, structure, process, method. Now we have a greater insight into the setup of selling to help everyone sell, to help customers buy and achieve a common language for your very important commercial engine. Our offer to you, if you're feeling the downside with your current sales approach, we can definitely help. We have a method for helping define your approach. We start by setting up a task force because we need to talk to different people at your company and set up a project team or task force to do so. For example, we talk to marketing, we talk to finance. We understand from finance where your best priority deals are, where the best margin is, what you want to scale now and into the future. We understand the current environments, and then we create a sales vision that's agreed by you, that's aligned to your business goals and future-proofed as best we can. Once we do that, then we develop your sales approach, and we do those 4 parts: model, structure, process, method. And then we document everything in an online interactive playbook. It could be as simple as how we sell, or the ABC company way of selling. And a playbook is really important because currently sales managers may find that they're having to repeat the same steps, the same methods, time and time again. Whereas if you have an interactive online playbook, then that same manager can say, hey, happy to talk it through with you, but can you check out section 18, which talks about exactly how we close deals. And there's a bit of video from Shana, who's brilliant at closing deals. So between those 2 things, would you have a look at that and then come back to me with any questions? And it just enables this kind of touchstone where your selling operation orbits around. Now, we estimate that only about 5% of companies have an effective playbook in place. 5 out of 100 have something that works. The rest of the companies we consult to have got playbooks in various stages. Most regard them as old or not relevant anymore. And some people start it and then leave the company and so forth. And others may not be fit for purpose because they've lifted the playbook from somewhere else. So it's a difficult thing to get right. And that's why you work with a company like ours, because we're able to fast track that in weeks rather than months or years of stop-start development. And then the final part of that is to train your team. We've got to be able to either train your team directly or give you the training modules if you've got training mechanisms in place already to help your trainers and managers embed this stuff and to recorrect people when they're getting back to older habits. And so if you have a refreshed and renewed sales approach, then you've got to have the team executing on it. So you've got to get their buy-in, and the buy-in not just from the sales team, but the whole organization, from reception to CEO, because everyone needs to understand and support the sales function in order for you to be successful. That's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. And if you would like a free consultation with myself, more than happy to provide that. And we'll put you in touch then with one of our coaches from our faculty who will be able to, using their experience and our templates and the ways we go about it, will be able to bring your sales approach to life. Hopefully I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.